Welcome to Fantasy Legends. My name's Scott, and today we're going to look at Tales of Xillia. We're going to rank all the playable characters based on their personality, story, and arcs. We won't be covering who is better in combat in this one, mainly due to the fact that I think they're both a separate thing. Who is best story-wise and who is best combat-wise can be completely different. This is based mainly on my opinion, as I found all the main characters had quite a lot of growth and development throughout the game. With that said, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out. Now let's get on with the video. At bottom of our list, at number 6, we have Xillia. This is for a few reasons, mainly because I consider her arc and story less important to the actual overall plot than the rest of the characters in the main ensemble cast. She seems to join the group for two main reasons. The first being that she is Jude's childhood friend. They seem to have quite a close bond, to be fair. And second reason is that she looks up to Mila and wants to emulate her strength. We do see her grow stronger during the game, which is great. And some of her skits can be really funny, as she has such a sarcastic personality. So there is that. I just didn't find her story as interesting as some of the other cast. This might be because she's quite similar to Jude in a way in terms of where they come from, their outlook on life. And obviously with Jude being one of the two main characters that you choose, it sort of diminishes her slightly. At number 5, we have Rowan, who I found to be a very traditional butler type, which is obviously what they were going for. He comes across as a traditional butler in terms of his manners and outward appearance. However, he can do a lot of jokes in the game to break the ice, it seems, and he does act like a father figure to a lot of the characters. Another interesting thing about him, I would say, is that he is very humble due to the fact that he doesn't lord over that he's actually a war hero, and this did make him more interesting and want me to know more about his story and why he chose to be a butler. At number 4, we have Elise, who comes across as very shy at the beginning, probably due to the fact that she grew up in such a strange environment. What makes her so interesting is the fact that she was experimented on, meaning that obviously emotionally sometimes she wasn't as developed as maybe she should be. However, her age does play a factor into this as well. Another thing that made her infinitely more interesting was Tipo. Of course, this is cheating slightly as it's not just her. However, it is her doll. So I decided to include it in her. And the skits between the two and the Tipo with the rest of the party are just amazing. Also, without Elise, there would be no Tipo, so she gets points there. However, I would say that she came across as a bit whiny at the beginning of the game, maybe because of her childlike nature. However, she does get a lot of development, so I found myself really liking her later on. At number 3, we have Mila. Now, she did get a lot of development throughout the game, which is not surprising considering she's one of the two main protagonists. I really did love her character. She comes across as really strong-willed and independent. However, the interesting thing about her as well is that she is very not knowledgeable in certain areas of life. She really didn't know how to act in social settings. It's not surprising her a lot more interesting, however, and the skits that came from that were amazing about humans coming from books. I also liked that certain members of the cast respected her as Lord of the Spirits. This made her more interesting due to her not being human, to be fair, as you learnt more about the spirits and more about their culture, which I found fascinating. At number 2, we have Alvin. Now, I loved him due to some of the same reasons that I liked Mila, and that is that because he's from a different culture, you learn a lot of lore from him. We don't find out that he's from a different culture until later on in the game. However, at the beginning, he's like a mercenary, roguish type guy, a bit like a Han Solo, I guess. And I just really love that sort of character. It made him really interesting, and some of his skits, and even the intrigue of what he was up to, not telling the party, was also interesting. I also found that we learned a lot from Alvin in terms of the other characters as well, as he brought out a lot of their personalities. I always found myself wanting to know more about Alvin. This was probably due to the fact that he was so secretive in a lot of the earlier skits, especially up until even just before we find out he's a mercenary. He is always secretive and doesn't really give much about himself, which just intrigued me even more to know more about him. So we've reached number 1 on the list, and that is Jude. Now, this might be a bit controversial. I'm not too sure how many people found Jude to their favourite. However, I just loved him, to be honest with you. His character had a lot of development, obviously, due to him being one of the main characters in the game. When we meet him, he is really soft-hearted and caring, but as the game goes on, he seems to get more darker and more tougher, and his development is just great, and some of his skits are really brilliant as well. I personally would always recommend going for a Jude playthrough first, as he is one of the 2 that you can choose. I found his story much more interesting than Mila's, even though that you do learn more lore about the other worlds and the spirits from Mila. So there you have it, there's my list. Who did you guys prefer in Tales of Xillia? Let me know in the comments down below who you would put as your number 1. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for listening.